Well, that was fucking weird. Wow. Talk about some Pluto and Aquarius. Holy smokes, man. That was crazy. So let me tell you what just happened here. So I sit down and I hit play, right? Start play. And all of a sudden, all this weird shit starts happening in this room. The printer over here starts going off. The lights start to blink. And then eventually, nothing is happening here that I can see. Like everything's got really weird. Then the lights went out. Like it was just crazy. Like fucking supernatural. Audio's weird. Okay, so this is a problem with this audio. Let me see if I can. We had this last time, and it's this headphone. And let me see if I can. I might just have to go straight into the speaker, the mic. So you may not get my dulcet tones tonight. Let me try. Let me change it up. Hold on. Try this. All right. So I'm on the internal microphone, and it may not sound as bright and cheery or deep and dulcet, but is that any better? Just a regular microphone? Your mom is hanging out and wants to say hi. My mom's hanging out and probably says, what the fuck are those cats doing in my chair? That's what my mom is saying. What the fuck are those cats doing in my chair? Thanks. All right, good. Yeah. You know, it's weird because that should be an actual decent hookup for the mic. But apparently we're just gonna go straight. We're just gonna go straight audio from the computer tonight. Yeah, my mom. Yeah, she's probably saying, like, what the fuck is going on with my house? Why is the septic tank broken? Are you going to fix it? Yes, of course. Of course. Of course we're fixing it. Of course we're working on it. Neptune transiting the fourth house. If you have a Neptune transit your fourth house, get ready. Especially if your fourth house is in Aries. High pressure, busted pipes, right? You got to watch out for that stuff. Neptune in the fourth house is always water, dealing with water. And when I was living out in Stonewall, not my house, still had to deal with water. Right? We had a pipe that broke, and it was leading from. Well, I had a pipe that broke because I was the one who was paying for it. I had a pipe that broke in the sink, underneath the sink, and it went down and out to like this small little patch of grass. It's not even grass. It was just like, just a patch of earth with some trees, and that's where we fed the birds. And that shit was like just bubbling up there. And they must have called 2 or 3 people out to fix this thing. One of them was the owner. None of them got to it. But hey, it wasn't my house, right? I had to deal with the fact that it wasn't really working. But at the end of the day, I didn't have to pay for the repairs for that. We'll fast forward. We'll go to the house that I'm living in now. And all of a sudden, we have an issue with the septic tank, which was not an issue when the house was purchased. So it looks like yours truly will be the proud owner of a brand new septic tank. I'm going to be so happy about that. I'm going to invite people over just so they can flush my toilets and say, you know what? That's my new septic tank. How'd it flush? Was it good? Was it good for you? So Neptune in the fourth house. It's an interesting transit. I'm not sure I would wish it on anyone. Maybe it would have been better off if I had just joined Scientology and been on the Sea Org. That might have been a better use of my Neptune transit. Could have been on the Sea Org out there on the Florida coast where Scientology pays no taxes, right? Neptune, if you got your fourth house is Neptune, you're gonna have both Saturn and Neptune transiting through there. Oh boy. I hope you're not forced to move. Because usually what happens when Saturn transits the fourth house, you wind up moving. 99.9% of the time, you wind up moving. If you don't, then you wind up building something on your property, or you go in and you lay new pipe and new conduit and, all that stuff. And I also have Saturn going through my fourth house as well. Again, it was in there before, it went back, now it's back again. So anyway, it's been home ownership. It's been a real interesting experience. I will say that. How was everybody tonight? You're not late, Shirley. You're actually right on time. No, you're right on time. We tried to start around 7:20-ish because I was getting a little bit of a late start. And then the spirits took over here and decided that they wanted to make themselves present and known, and got my attention. Pretty good. I swear to God, it was like fucking poltergeist in here. That's what it was like. CRUs are ready to redo a sewer line. The public outlet was about 10K. Septic should be less. It's around the same. Brother Zygos can relate here. Lafayette Neptune is my fourth house where I've been there about 2 years. This year has been a doozy, but I think it's mostly the south node, black moon, will the transit in my 10th house. Been there about 2 years. Give it time. Give it time. And you're going to have a transit there through Aries too. You got to check. You got to check. Your not just your pipes, but your hot water heater. If you're on any kind of a gas system, and you have Neptune and Aries going through your fourth house, you got to be really on top of that. If you got some people have what are they? Boilers. Some people have boilers, and you got to be paying real close attention if you have a. Usually boilers are used in apartment buildings and shit like that, right? So you gotta pay attention to those hot water heaters with net transiting Neptune going through your. And that's it's a long transit, right? It's a long transit. So hey, as long as you don't have somebody from the Red Army coming in and repossessing your house, I think you can get through it, and you're good. You're good. Is Mercury retrograde again? We'll take a look at it. Jan Emily's here. Hi, Jan. I've heard you say Saturn fourth. Yes, absolutely. Getting that going now. Look at that. See, this is it, man. This is it. Saturn resets everything in your life, and the biggest reset is in the fourth house because it's not Saturn's house, right? That house belongs to the moon. But the idea here, right, is when Saturn goes into your fourth house, you're resetting your foundation. You're resetting your foundation for the next upward cycle of Saturn. So when it reaches your pinnacle, it hits your pinnacle, right? It's a major transit. It's a time where you're able to take advantage of that transit. So and that's kind of crazy for me because I remember when Saturn was in Pisces, 1996, 95, 96, I got kicked. I was managing this apartment building, and the building was bought, and I had to move. So it's like, oh shit, well, where do I go now? Right? Like, where do I go? And I wound up moving to this warehouse, which I lived from 1997 to 1999. But the thing that was interesting about my Saturn transit through my fourth house back in 95, right around 94, 95, is I started my gig as a phone psychic. And I was doing a lot of phone psychic stuff, which was really interesting. Because I had Neptune going through my second house, so I was making my money through Neptunian means. And as soon as it moved, that was I had Pluto on my ascendant in Scorpio, so I was really, really psychic. Like we're all psychic, but we have these periods where like shit just gets really thin. We're kind of marching up on that now collectively. I'm going to tell you a story about what happened last night. But that's when I started to do a lot of that work. And then I think as a byproduct of all of that during that time, that when Saturn hit my midheaven, 14 years later, that's when I started to do my astrological stuff. So whenever Saturn goes through your fourth house, you're rebuilding your foundation, literally. And sometimes a move will be a part of it. And then I did move. I just didn't land anywhere specific for a couple of years. I kind of floated around a little bit until the fall of the fall of 1996. That's when I moved. It's actually almost wintertime. Just about winter of 96, I moved into a warehouse in Berkeley, and I stayed there for 3 years, and it was good. It was a good experience, although primitive, but good, really good. Okay, before we get into tonight's show, and I want to say a few hellos and check in. I got a really funny story for you guys. This is really funny. This is like psychic network world. Okay, I got to keep a straight face. All right, so last night we're at the San Antonio Spurs Golden State Warriors game, and the game itself. Warriors lost. They didn't play very well in the second half, but there's this moment, right? There is this moment where they have this thing. Like they're always doing things with the crowd, like button races and all kinds of shit, right? Like scrambling a license plate and trying to guess it, and it's one of the players' names. So they have a kiss cam. They have the camera, and people see them and they kiss each other, right? So then they had this one that was celebrity lookalike cam. Okay, celebrity lookalike cam, and they're going around and they're showing the different people. And I'm not being racist. Okay, I'm just observing. San Antonio is heavily Latino. So a lot of the lookalikes tended to be like Latino men or women. Not all of them, by the way, but a lot of them were. And because they just had the they had the clients, they had the customer base for that. And most of them were young. If they weren't that, right, they were young. So I said to Joan, I said, so when are they going to have the when I have the old white guy look alike? That's what I want to know. I was just joking, right? And then all of a sudden, they had Christopher Walken. Picture Christopher Walken. And then who did they have as the Christopher Walken look-alike? Me, right? So there I was on the fucking Jumbotron. And I just asked Joan, I said, so when do they have the old white guy look-alike? See, there we go, right? Psychic Networkville. Psychic fucking Networkville. So there I am on the Jumbotron, and people are cracking up. Joan could not stop laughing. The guy in front of me gave me a fist pump. He thought it was hilarious. And hey, look, if I'm going to be compared to somebody, like it may as well be Christopher Walken. Like, at least he's cool, right? At least it wasn't like Bill Nye the Science Guy or some shit like that. I think they were, here's what happened, Susie. I think they were really scrounging around for somebody who had hair that was like kind of like his and a complexion kind of like his. Yeah, it was again, psychic network moment, man. We're coming into it. This is what I've been talking about. Like, it's our thoughts are radio signals, and they're everywhere. Scott, I am crazy enough. I don't need any water. Trust me, I got plenty of crazy. That was so damn funny. I have to admit, it was very, very funny. Anyways, good timeout. Although the Warriors lost, it is what it is. Pisces had a rough night. Like Moon was in Virgo, and the Golden State Warriors have all these Pisces guys on their team. Steph Curry, Draymond Green, uh, Trace Jackson Davis, Brandon Pajemski. The only guy who had a good game was Andrew Wiggins. All the others should have cut the head off. The fish stunk last night. I have the Christopher Walken brow line. that was more cowbell. I got to work on my walking. I got to definitely work on my walking. All right. Looks like everybody's in a pretty good mood tonight. We got a lot. Look at that. Mo Harrison. I just had my hot water heater replaced. What the fuck? Yeah. Yes. I don't know where Saturn and Neptune are in your chart, but it's real, man. I'm telling you, it's real. It looked more like Greg Allman with short hair. Yeah, Greg Allman always struck me as one of those guys. If you looked at him a certain way, you go, that guy's kind of rough looking. And then if you look at him another way, it's like, wow, that guy is like really kind of like handsome, and like he had that look about him. It just depended on the angle with Greg Allman, right? Like that was Greg Allman's things. You just had to look at the wrong angles. Like, that's kind of rough. Totally about Greg. Greg Allman's a Sagittarius, by the way. I love that tune, man. I'm No Angel by Greg Allman. That's such a great song. I love the Allman Brothers. And Dwayne Allman got taken from us way too quickly. Way, way, way too quickly. It was good enough for Cher. That's right. Yeah, that's right. The story, he's such a Sagittarius. Right? He's such a Sagittarius. And the Allmans wanted to make a record. And they didn't know where Greg was. It wasn't like people had like phones with text messages and shit back then. They didn't know where he was. He was in California, and he's hanging out with Cher, and he's making a record with Cher, and nobody in the group knew it. They were like completely out of the loop, and then they found out, oh, Greg's in Malibu. He's making a record with Cher. Like that's like such a fucking total Sag thing, isn't it? It's just like a total Sag thing. Yeah. What did Jones say? Oh, Kenny Rogers before plastic surgery. That's funny. Yeah. Oh man. Okay. He loved that. Yeah. Total Sag. It's just how Sages roll, man. It's, leave the barn door open. They'll be back. That's how they roll. Hey, Peter Bione's here. Should we get a Peter Bione update? There he is. Peter, give us some news, brother. Give us some news about your transmission. Peter's landed in Nashville, Tennessee. Islands in the Stream. I have that on my yacht list, man. He was making the sun with Cher too. I got a story about that. You guys want to hear my Elijah Blue story? You want to hear? He's an actor. He's a bystander in the story, but he's a part of the story. Let me know if you want to hear the story. If not, I'll just get on with the show. Scott wants to hear the story. All right. So here's the story. Starts off with an ex-girlfriend. We were together for 3 or 4 years. So, I got to know people in her family and in her circle. And one of the people in her circle was this really cool woman, older woman. And her husband was the creator of a very well-known TV show called The People's Court. You may remember Judge Wapner. So I got to know this woman and her husband. They were super nice people. really, really nice people, like old school. Yeah, I remember going to brunch with them. I think it was at the Mark Hopkins. It was like just great. These were such cool people. And their son, I'm not going to bring the son's name in, but he's an actor. I got to know him, one of the funniest people I've ever met in my life. And one day, the two of them, husband and wife, were driving down PCH, and this guy made just a fucking bozo move in his car. I think he turned around, and he wasn't supposed to turn around at a certain point. And they wound up T-boning his car. And these two people had gone through so much, right? Like, he had a very difficult time for a while, and she, he left them, he left the family, he came back, she kind of kept the light on for him, right? And then once he came back, she said, get to work, and he came up with the People's Court and changed their life. And when they hit this guy on the PCH, they died instantly together, right? They died instantly together. It was like, it's one of those weird things as a kid, or the offspring of the parents. It's kind of like, well, you lose both parents at the same time. But like in a weird way, the universe has this kind of greater compassion where they both go together. It's like, it's a really weird thing to sort out, right? It's a weird thing to sort out. But here's where Elijah Blue comes in. He's the one that witnessed it. He witnessed the accident. And so he's the one that called it in. And the police arrived. And, it's weird, right? Like, so on one level, it's a tragedy. And on another level, it's kind of like the universe might have been looking out for them. You know what I mean? It's really hard to judge sometimes when an event like that happens. I got a story tonight that I was going to get into a little bit. And it has to do with twins and reincarnation. We'll get into that a little bit later. Pretty cool story. Let's see what Peter has to say here. Peter says, first week of work, long days, but really good people. Going to Monday night jams, some great players. Went with Lisa of LA Bliss last week. Still looking for a place. All right. You got your feet on the ground there. Good job, Peter. And thanks to everybody who helped our brother Peter out. He has beautiful coloring, blonde hair and blue eyes, Elijah Blue. How horrible. Yeah, I know, right? Like the PCH, man, LA, it's just a strange scene. Totally strange scene. All right, Erica Modi's here. Hi, Erica. It is sad, but on another level, it's like, I kind of get it, right? It's like they loved each other so much that maybe if one of them had gone before the other, it might have, like if she had gone before him, he would have been just devastated. I think how that rolls, right? Yeah. All right. Let's look at the chart of the day. Let's get into kind of where we are now. I got a lot on the plate tonight, so we need to get going here. A lot to cover. How's everybody feeling about the Trump appointees? Raises his eyes. Yeah. It seems like with every successive appointee now, they're getting more and more dubious. Doesn't it feel that way? It's just feeling like more and more dubious. Like this last one for the CDC, this woman who was like, she was lauded by Peter Hotez. Anytime Peter Hotez speaks highly of somebody, you may want to pay fairly close attention. All right. Let's see where we are. Okay. Mercury is not retrograde yet. So it was really just living in the house of the spirits. And I'm not even in the house. I'm not even in the house. All right. Let's get into a little. There we go. Just weird, weird energy. I mean, this is what's going to happen. Here, I'll give you another kind of weird thing. Check this out. This is really weird. So last night, again, we're at the game, and Joan can even, she doesn't even know about this. Let me do this. And so we're at the game, right? And I see this guy with a turban, and I'm like, oh, is that guy a Sikh? You know, I like to fuck around a little bit. I'll say, you know what? Maybe I'll become a Sikh. I think Sikhs could be kind of, being a Sikh could be kind of cool. And I think I need a turban because all the Sikhs have turbans. Right? I was digging the guy's turban. So my son sends me this image tonight. Like, I don't even know why he sends me this image. But he sends me this image tonight. This just came in like 45 minutes ago. Like, what the fuck? Like, where did that come from? Chase Center. That's where the Warriors play. Like, what the fuck is this? Is that Steve Kerr? I don't know. Maybe it's Steve Kerr as a Sikh. That is weird, right? And it's like this is the state of the universe that we're living in. You know. DJ Pebblestone just says, does feel like he wants to disappoint on purpose to fuck them up somehow. I don't know. That's Steve Kerr, yeah. But he just sent me that like out of the blue. Like, wow, that's really, is he a terrorist or something? I don't know what he meant by that image. I do not know what he meant by that image. All right, let's get into the chart. Susie says, if Susie says it's getting weirder and weirder, you know it is, right? Claire, a box just fell in my bedroom. Fairly normal. I mean, I'd rather. What the fuck is going on here? We must be the Aeon card. That's what it feels like. What's going on with Eileen? What's happening with Eileen? Let's see, we got an Eileen comment here. Let's see. Kushner is still involved. Sam's got that right, 100%. My son died in a car crash in 2020. It was both tragic and miraculous. Oh, I'm so sorry. So sorry. You never really recover from stuff like that. Meagical Catacorn is here. Hi, Meagical. Give a heart right back to you. Kelly Broyle says, what have you started? The same house as you. Laugh out loud. Would be more understandable if Moon was the 12th already. What does Kelly say here? The energy is very strange. Tried talking to my little sister and conversation went sideways. I still don't know why. Yeah. We're glad you're here, Eileen. And Barbara Boots finally found us. Peter, I can hardly believe my luck has done a 180 since I got out of the toxic relation bubble of energy. First day job I applied for, I got. And it's a really good job. Great benefits. Good vibe. Awesome. Awesome. Hey, Lamb Chop. What's happening? You know, here's my thing. You know, when one of us wins, we all win. That's how I feel about it. When one of us wins, we all win. This is the age of Aquarius. So, you know, we're cheering you on, Peter. And everybody else, we're cheering you on as well, wherever you are in your lives, wherever you are. Okay, let's throw that up there. Everything is yourself, and yourself is everything. Let's throw this up there from Tom. Yes, we'd like to schedule astrology reading. You can go right there. There's the number. It rolls over, and it'll reach my cell phone eventually. This is a great space. Glad to be here. Glad to have you. Let's see. Let's look at the chart at the moment. Like that seat thing was just like out of fucking nowhere. It's like, what the fuck? Where'd you come up with that, sonny boy? Hold on. Is that what we want? Let's see what we got here. Yep, that'll do it. Throw that in the hopper. Okay. Let's do this. Oh, before I do, let me just run the banner here since we're still early in the show. So True Hemp Science, you can get high quality, extremely high quality, organically sourced CBD. And all you have to do is spend $100 or more, type in 15MINS. You will get a free goodie bag, which is like a little mini order on top of your big order. And $150 gets you free shipping. There's always a 30-day money-back guarantee. Our good friend Chris is one of the best mad scientists when it comes to CBD. And you can always make an appointment and speak with them to figure out which CBD choice is the best for you. All right, and we're big True Hemp Science people over in this here part of the world. All right, this is where we are now. There's the sun at 3 degrees Sagittarius. And we have this trine with Mars. Mars is about to go retrograde, right? Station's at 6 degrees. And then it moves backwards. And it goes, I think, to around 15 Cancer. Then it moves forward again eventually. It's a long journey with Mars. A long journey with Mars. It feels to me like once it goes retrograde, the danger of that is that there are going to be people who are going to feel powerless. And we've just seen a broad sweeping election. And it's amazing how many people have gone over to this blue sky. And a lot of quote unquote conservatives go over there and troll them, and they start blocking all these people. Like that's here's what I think should happen. Everybody should fucking block Mike Pompeo on Twitter. Okay, everybody should block Bibi Netanyahu on Twitter. Anybody that is cheerleading for the slaughter of innocent men, women, and children in Palestine, at the very least, this is minor, should be blocked on Twitter. And anybody who supports that, whether they're directly involved or indirect, they should be blocked as well. Right? I mean, just don't give them an audience. Block them. Now, of course, some of the brain dead Christians, not all Christians are brain dead, just some. I'm not here to slam Christianity, but there are some who really feel like this is a very important thing. We don't have to go over it. We know what it's about. But I would say block that kid. Block that kid. Mars retrograde in Cancer is going to elicit feelings of people feeling powerless. And it won't just be on the quote unquote left side. I think there's going to be people on the so-called right who are going to continue to look at these appointments by Trump, and they're going to say, they're going to see the hidden hand of Jared Kushner behind it all. And they're going to say, well, we didn't really sign up for this. You know, we want to make America great again. We don't want to make Israel great again. We want to make America great again. And there are people who are going to, it's not just going to be a blanket endorsement of Trump and his appointees. This is not 2016, right? It's not 2016. And, you know, there have been a few interesting choices. We've gone through some of them, but I don't think people are just blindly going to rubber stamp everybody that Trump has brought in. We looked at Pam Bondi and her record on Friday on the Friday show. Not great, right? She's also. I was talking to Shirley, who's in chat. We were texting a little bit, and she told me that there's a connection between Pam Bondi and the Church of Scientology, which of course is big in Florida, Clearwater, Florida. And then they have the Sea Org right off the coast of Florida. So this Mars retrograde in Cancer, the natives are restless, right? They're stirring. And there's going to be a lot of defensiveness and it's going to be very interesting to watch because there are people that love to poke the bear. They love to poke the bear. Like there's this guy at High Impact Flicks who I follow on Twitter, and I used to like his material. I'm not all that crazy about it, but he's completely lashing out at Trump supporters who drank the Kool-Aid and you know have you know lost the plot, and they'll slobber knock anything that Trump does. He needs to be careful. And the reason I'm saying this is that, you know, we watched, I don't know if you've ever seen Nick Johnson. He's very funny. He's been on Tim Pool. He does mostly real estate videos, but he's clearly a hardcore Trumper. And he's going all over like Pennsylvania, New Jersey, New York, and talking to both Trump people and Harris people. And Nick is very, very funny. And so he talks to these people that they're pro-Trump, and they're in places like New York, New Jersey, and upstate New York, in the city. He's talking to people in Philadelphia. He's talking to people in Michigan and Detroit. And this guy at High Impact Flicks, who is, you know, slamming all the so-called Trump people on Twitter, he doesn't realize, right? Like he doesn't realize that he's talking to a small fraction. Like the people that are in New York or New Jersey or Michigan or Massachusetts, and these are very pro-Trump people, and they voted for Trump because they felt like he was their best chance to keep their business afloat. He's not tweeting to those people. They're not on Twitter, right? He's not tweeting. They don't have time to fucking read his tweets and him try to get under the skin of these people. But if he went into those places, if he went into, like we saw these guys from New Jersey today, if he went into those spaces and started giving them shit about voting for Trump and oh look, you're getting the Zionists, you're getting this, he wouldn't leave that block unblemished. I'm telling you right now. And there's this really weird kind of ideological echo. And again, this is very Aquarian. Right? It's very Aquarian because it's all social media. But there's this ideological echo. If you're going on Twitter and you're posting on Twitter, there's a pretty good chance that, number one, technologically, you kind of know what you're doing. Right? Like Twitter is a very different space than Facebook. You know, Facebook, people you know, they put long form content into Facebook. Twitter is not long. Twitter is basically for it's like fencing, right? And Facebook is like I don't know, those big long swords that are really heavy. It takes two hands. Twitter is fencing and jousting. It's not long form content. So people that get on Twitter, you also have to know kind of what to do and how to retweet. Like there's like certain things. It's not rocket science, but again, it's not like Facebook. Facebook is way more homogenized in a lot of ways, and I would say Facebook is going to be landing more in sort of the boomer world. And there's nothing wrong with that. My mother's friends post on Facebook, and they're Pluto and Cancer. On Twitter, you're going to get a lot of Pluto and Scorpio, Gen X, and some boomers, right? And that's not even taking IG into account. We're just talking Twitter. So once you have that, you have people that are ideologically bent one way or the other. Like there's a lot of bent ideological identification. So the people who are real blue collar, working class American people who voted for Donald Trump, they don't have the fucking time of day to post on Twitter. They don't. So who this guy is insulting, I think it was Greg something. Who he's insulting are the people that are on Twitter. And the people that are on Twitter tend to be kind of ideologically bent. Like I said, he's not insulting. Well, he is insulting. He is insulting the people that voted for Trump because they see in Trump a promise and a hope. Now, you may think that that's bullshit. You may think it's corny. You may think it's fatuous. You may think it's deaf, dumb, and blind. But to them, they have seen what's happened. And they have seen the impact of Biden and Harris on their businesses. And for them, it's a no-brainer. This guy seems to be more, if I'm going to keep my business alive, I'm probably going to have to vote for this guy, right? And this is another thing that I think is really interesting. A lot of these people, and this all has to do with Mars Cancer retrograde, and I'm gonna go there. A lot of the people that strike out against, say, Donald Trump and the government, they don't really have jobs. Like I could just go down the list and I can tell you they don't really have jobs. Like all this guy from High Impact Flicks does is make videos and tweet nasty things about Donald Trump. Now, you could say that Whitney Webb has a job and she's a journalist. And I would say that that's a job, performative function, contributing to society, but it's not really a job per se, right? Like if somebody doesn't buy her book, it's not going to be the end of the day, primarily because Whitney Webb comes from money. She comes from money. Her father is stupid rich. That's just a side part of the story, right? She comes from money. But if somebody didn't buy her book, she would get paid somehow by Mint Press or whoever it is she's writing for now. Maybe it's not Mint Press, but she lives fairly cheaply in Chile, and she'll probably make some money vis-a-vis the internet, whatever, right? But it's not a job. Derek Bros may have his book that he sells or gives away, and he may teach people about how to bust out of the system and then build your own world. And that's not a bad thing, right? Like, he's providing a service. But again, is it a job? No, it's not a job. None of those people I mentioned are responsible for employees. Does Whitney Webb have any employees? I don't know. Maybe she pays the people that give her all this research. Does Mr. High Impact Flicks have any employees? Outside of his family, does David Icke have any employees? He's not an American. So all these people who want to dump on Trump and laugh at people because they voted for Trump. A lot of them don't have any fucking jobs. They don't have any skin in the game. Now, they may have ideological skin in the game, but they don't have any skin in the game. They don't know what it's like to run a business, have a bottom line, meet payroll. These are all very like real world issues that most of them have no idea what they're about at all, right? At all. And I'm not saying they're better or worse, but they just don't have the same kind of buy-in. So this Mars retrograde in Cancer is going to be very interesting because I feel like people are going to go into resentment mode. And that could be any, like, you know, modularity, any kind of modularity of what that looks like. It could be liberal and bitter and resentful, because Mars retrograde in Cancer can be bitter. It's not, you know, what's interesting in some ways is that the crab moves backwards. So Mars retrograde in Cancer isn't necessarily like the worst thing. I would say that Mars retrograde in Cancer is much more interested in retreating than moving forward. And I feel like that's going to be a big theme as Mars makes that retrograde motion. And so what does that mean to retreat? Well, it means to kind of dig in and make sure you have everything you need. And, you know, we're coming into winter. So, you know, we're coming into the opposite sign. Ultimately, we just moved into Capricorn. Next sign over, sorry, Sagittarius. Next sign over is Capricorn. Mars in Cancer now has a function, right? It's all about making sure that you can get through a difficult time with having enough things on hand to do that, whatever those things are. So it's a energy that's associated with retreat. And it works perfectly in Cancer because that's what crabs do. They move backwards. But from an emotional and energetic position, Mars in Cancer can be, especially retrograde, can be bitter. You could have serious buyer's remorse with Mars retrograde Cancer. So I think for a lot of people who are watching Jared Kushner and The Hidden Hand, you have to really, really watch out for being bitter and saying, here we go again. You know, all these people are just going to repopulate the swamp. You have to watch out for that, right? You've got to be very clear that there's a very good possibility that this was going to happen. Look, when I heard Jared Kushner was going to, you know, be on Trump's appointee board or whatever, right? I was like, oh, here we go. You know, here we go. I mean, it's like you just kind of brace for impact. It's just the way it is. And anything above and beyond it that surprises you is like, well, hallelujah, look at this. Right? So that's part of it. It's like you have to have realistic expectations. Still, you know, that Mars retrograde in Cancer takes things very personally. And, you know, I'm just saying, man, these black pill people, I'm not saying this is a threat. I am not saying this is a threat. They had better be on their toes. Like I saw this. Tom is a big Walter Kern person. I don't really follow Walter Kern. I don't even really know who he is. But he and Whitney Webb got into a skirmish on her Twitter feed, and it has to do with these Trump appointees. And you know, some of what she's doing is just pointing out the truth. Some of which is, you know, she's like future casting about money, about Bitcoin, whatever, right? She's basically saying, okay, you're going to get stuck with a CBDC. It doesn't matter what Trump has said. You're going to get stuck with it. So she's forecasting that people are going to be stuck in the the panopticon, right? Surveillance state 24/7. Your money is being surveilled. And then, if you are not doing good things, your money supply is cut off, social credit score, like all that stuff, right? Like she's still into projecting that. And guess what? It might happen. It might happen. But here's where I think, and even if it does happen, I'm just telling you, man, this Pluto and Aquarius energy doesn't. Oh my God, I just had an epiphany. I just had an epiphany. All right. But this Pluto and Aquarius energy will not be easy to tame. Like, there's just going to be a bunch of high strange and synchronicities and things that don't always go according to plan. And I know I sound like a broken record on this, but I believe it. I totally believe it. But these people, like the high impact Flix guy or Adam Green or whomever, who are going out of their way to insult and goad Trump people that voted for Trump, they need to be very careful, because that guy from High Impact Flix has a very visible face. Right? Like if I saw him on the street, I would know who he was. I would recognize him, especially now that he's cut his beard off. And he may cross the path of somebody who maybe is someone who does work and who does have a job, not just a job, a business that they have to provide for the people with. And then when you get into somebody's space, things get a lot different when you're in somebody's space, right? Like all of a sudden, the internet warrior kind of goes away. And who knows, maybe High Impact Flix guy can take care of himself. I don't know. But these guys that were in the video or the videos that Nick Johnson, I wouldn't want to mess with any of these guys. Like these guys were fucking, blue collar, hard ass motherfuckers. And I don't care, like if Mr. High Impact Flix has, taken jujitsu, whatever. So I just got a text from my son. He laughed. I said I was telling Joe last night that I needed the trip. This is what I'm talking about. Like somebody's going to cross the wrong person with this Mars Cancer retrograde. Okay, now here's another thing we got to watch out for. This is much bigger picture, especially now that Mars is right there and it's opposing Pluto. It's going to station at 6. We have to pay attention to fucking false flags, okay? We have to pay attention to the psyops. It's vital, because I could easily see that this Mars retrograde in Cancer would try and crank people up, and it's Iran now. Like, can you see the script? It's Iran and it's Russia. It's never China, by the way. It's never China. China is left out of the discussion. But it's always Iran and all of its terror states. Like they're the greatest threat that the world faces, besides Russia, of course. And that Mars retrograde in Cancer, it's like that's getting people worked up about, oh shit, we've got to get these fucking Iranian motherfuckers, right? I don't know why I can't see it. Had it up there. Said to stop showing it. That's right there. There you go. Same as it was. There's Mars. Right there. Right. So at 6 degrees, it's going to station. Station means that it's going to look like it's not going anywhere. And then it's going to retrograde after we go station. So it's going to go 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0, 29, and brings us into the midpoint of Cancer. And just be on your, look, I don't have to tell you. You guys know, right? Don't get sucked in. right? Do not, because right now they're doing everything in their power to get people to hate Russia, Vladimir Putin, Iran, Hamas, Hezbollah, whatever, right? Like those are the boogeymen. And all they got to do is just apply enough pressure in one direction and have something happen. And then that thing is pinned on one of the criminals that I just talked about. And with this Mars retrograde, it's like, okay, we have to defend ourselves. We have to defend ourselves. Not only that, but just like at 9/11, you're with us or against us. And I'm not a huge fan of this Mars retrograde. We just had Pluto go into Aquarius, which is interesting. And now all of a sudden, like Mars retrograde in Cancer is taking us back in time. And maybe some of that might be, again, moderately interesting. Like Saturn will move forward, Mars will move backwards, and somewhere in between they'll meet. So Mars-Saturn trines are actually kind of interesting. Mars is going to move retrograde. It's going to trine up with Neptune. Again, pretty interesting, but it's retrograde. It's like, haven't we been here before? Haven't we done this before? It's like, oh, here's the script. And even Mars retrograde with Saturn, trining Saturn, it's like Saturn is authoritarian. And now we're in some kind of weird religious war. When you get into Pisces, it just feels like, let's go fight the fucking Muslims, or let's go fight the Russians. It just has that feel to it. Now, wars can only work if people fight them. That's the only way they can work. So if you have a young person of fighting age, I would say that it would be incumbent upon you to make sure that young person of fighting age doesn't fall for it. Not only that, but if they've already kind of clicked in with the draft, haven't they? They kind of, sneakily reactivated the draft for women too. So what's going to happen if 500,000 young people just say no? What are they going to do with those people? So is this going to happen like when Mars goes retrograde in Cancer, or do they need to remoralize young men? Well, with Donald Trump coming in, and I do think that there's a bit of a difference. A lot of people will say, oh, it's just two sides of the same coin. I don't really buy that. Although you could kind of make a case for it in some ways. Like, I do see that there are factions that are, kind of fighting for control. Like I see the kind of the Musk and the PayPal mafia kind of fighting for control against like the Rothschilds and old school money. Right. So these guys are like new school money, and they want to be able to address the terms and conditions of the financial reset on their level, right? In their way. Not say with the by the way, Janet Yellen just stepped down, which is, speaking of finances, not the Rothschild way, not the central bank way. So there's that, right? Just fundamentally, there's that. And if you think that the Bushes have anything in common with Donald Trump, maybe somewhere way down their line they're related, but they're very different, right? Like, we have these little cliques and little gangs, and there's the Bushes, and there's the Obamas, and there's the Bidens, and then there's the Clintons, and they all have their little mobs, and then sometimes they get together and they work as one mob, and other times they don't do that, right? There's always kind of this ideological and sociological and economic turf war that is going on. So I don't think it's just two sides of the same coin. Although I think that there are two representative models of so-called systems of control, two main models. But to say that they're all on the same team working for the same goal, I don't think is fundamentally true. Right? Like all you have to do is look into the marketplace. And there are people who are on the Fortune 500 company list, right? 2 or 3 of them probably make tires. So does that mean that they're all on the same tire team? No, they're not. Like I'm sure one company would love for their tires to have more sales than the other company. Coke and Pepsi, they're not working for the same team. They're not. Right? They're working on soda, but they're not on the same team. So this is what I'm trying to get across. So Mars retrograde is going to be very interesting, just in terms of pushing people's buttons, right? Because we've got this nice grand trine right now. You know, Mars trining the Sun trining Neptune by degree. So people, by and large, are generally feeling pretty good post-election, right? But it feels like Mars retrograde it's not really a hangover, but it's more of a sense of like a sour stomach, right? Like you just have a sour stomach. I guess that would be called heartburn or something like that, or maybe not the same, but that's what it feels like. And then what happens is let's go back to Trump for a second. Do they want Donald Trump to be president of the United States? I would say there would be a portion that does. There is another group that would not like Donald Trump to be president of the United States. I don't think that Trump is universally loved. If you sat down with the Bushes, I don't think the Bushes universally love Trump. I think that there are people both in the Republican Party, like Susan Murkowski, the other one, Lisa Murkowski and Susan, whatever her name is, from Alaska. Lisa Murkowski's from Alaska. It's the Susan, what's her name, from Maine, right? Is that how it goes? Those two, they don't like Trump. Lindsey Graham likes him because Lindsey Graham just butters up who's ever in power. Mitch McConnell doesn't like him. You think Dick Cheney likes him? Fuck no. Right? So it's gonna. I think that they would love to create a massive disturbance before Trump gets in office. I think they want to just take as much money out of the government, throw it into Ukraine, have some of that come back for the so-called Democrats, and then shit the bed before they leave. It's kind of like they're renting an Airbnb, right? And they're just taking everything they can from the Airbnb, and then they're giving it the Led Zeppelin at the Hyatt House treatment in LA. They're just going to trash everything, right? Because they don't want Trump to come in with a perfect set of conditions in order to just rattle off his change, whatever his change is. They're going to make his ass work for it. And they're going to inflict as much pain as possible. So this is why with this I believe this, by the way. And you can already see what's going on in Russia. You can already see what's going on in Israel. Like, that's pain. And the people are not going to be very happy. So whether it's, giving the Trump administration spoiled milk when they get in, or keeping them from getting in, period, like nothing like a good war or a state of emergency just to lock things down. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but that would be the extreme effect of what I'm talking about. So I don't think there's any winners here with Mars retrograde, unless, of course, you're in a fine position to retreat. If you're in a good position to retreat, you're fine. This thing doesn't move forward until next year. So I think it's kind of a big transit. Somebody talked about Mercury going retrograde, and that's going to happen fairly soon. So let's look at that. I should just know this shit. Okay, so we have Mercury retrograde on 11/26. So that's 2 days from now. So it's going station tonight. Stations tonight, tomorrow, and Tuesday goes retrograde. And it goes retrograde at 22:40. And it stays retrograde until the 16th of December. It goes direct. Why don't we take a look at the Sabian symbol for 23 Sag? Let's take a look at that. Oh my God. What a Sabian symbol for Mercury to go retrograde. Whoa. Check this out. 2240, we go to 23. A group of immigrants, as they fulfill the requirements of entrance into the new country. What's Mercury doing? It's going backwards. It's going retro fucking grade. So this would be the forward version, right? Consciously accepting the new ways of a new stage of experience in readiness for the opportunities it will present. As we pass through any threshold leading to a new realm of experience, existence, we have to meet certain requirements and the necessity to adjust to new ways of life. In action, thought, and feeling. At times, this may seem like an ordeal, but it is inevitable. Everything that will follow depends largely on how we cross this threshold and on the spirit in which we meet unfamiliar and perhaps shocking experiences. At this stage of the 53rd fivefold sequence, we face a combination of the two preceding symbols. We find ourselves in a period of transition. We have to imitate yet retain our inner integrity. So a group of immigrants is so it's basically it's like getting your fucking green card. And you have to do all these things in order to get it, but Mercury's going retrograde with this symbol. Wow. Wow, that is wild. That is really, really wild. What is this? Tonight? Yeah. That is some wild shit, man. So what's going to happen during this retrograde cycle of Mercury? It's only 3.5 weeks. Trump's not in office. What is going to happen? How is this thing? Mercury retrograde, and Sagittarius is like foreign countries, right? Oh. Okay, so it goes retrograde at 2340. Right. Good. Right now it's at 2235. I was like, hey, I got to get this right. It's in an interesting position now, conjunct Pallas. So there's a lot of prophets on the internet right now with Mercury Pallas conjunction, especially in Sagittarius. That Pallas is conjunct the galactic center. It's off by 1 or 2 degrees. So some big ticket items coming in and forecasting them in a lot of ways for the future. But you have to also figure out, is what you're getting truth or is it illusion? Because with that Neptune squaring both Mercury and Pallas, by the way, you may get a little static in the attic. Oh man. All right, we are back. Wow, what a dramatic turn of events. Looks like I lost about 100 of you in the last 5 minutes. Okay, that was something else, man. Like just a part of the house that I was in, power just went out. Boom, boom, just done. Right. So right now I'm operating off of my cell phone. I'm using my cell phone as a hotspot. So that was you to be right back sign. Yeah, if I could just plug that in, or maybe one of the mods could. That was crazy. That was totally crazy. Like everything in the room just died. Period. Bang. Yeah, I was just getting cooking. You're right. You're right, Squatch. I was just getting cooking. All right, let's see if we can find the groove again. Let's do that. Astrology is real. I know. We're just dealing with the onset of Mercury retrograde. Okay. We are dauntless. David Bowie called me unflappable. He was right. All right, here we go. Zoom in. We were just getting cooking, man. See. What was I going to say? I was going to say, oh yeah. I was going to say, now wasn't that some shit? That's what I was going to say. It's like, wasn't that some shit? That's interesting. All right. Why don't we do this? I mean, we've got the chart of the moment here. Like we kind of know what we're up against, I think, right? And now it's back on again. Oh, that's just weird. It's supernatural. All right, we're just gonna roll tide here. Okay. Let's get into some Pluto and Aquarius stuff, which is really what the show is ostensibly about, right? In order to understand Pluto and Aquarius, we have to, on some level, understand what it was like at a certain period of time. The last time Pluto was in Aquarius, historically, which is the thumbnail up there, was when we go to war, we being this country. By the way, just remind me, I'm going to do something on England tonight because I have the English chart. Somebody asked me to do it. And it's part of what we'll talk about. We'll fold it in towards the end of the Revolutionary War stuff. So we have to understand like where Pluto and Aquarius was. So it happens like Pluto and Capricorn, we get together, and we being the founding fathers, whatever, and you write the Declaration of Independence. It takes a couple months, but it gets there. And that's when we theoretically start the country, July 4th, 1776. Sagittarius rising, Sun in Cancer. You know it, you know the drill. By the time Pluto moves into Aquarius, it is revolutionary. Right? It is the Revolutionary War. And as you go through Wikipedia, starting around 1777, 1778, the Wikipedia history is dominated by the Civil War. And why wouldn't it be? Because it's an extremely important part of global history. Right? But there are things that are embedded in that period of time that are very important and specifically related to where we are. And I'm going to get into some of those because the Revolutionary War stuff, David covers it incredibly well, right? Like he has like all the angles and all the transits and this point in time, at this point in time. So that's David's domain. He's great at it. And it's part of the story, but there are other things that are going on that I think are really interesting. So one of the things that happens during Pluto and Aquarius. I want to put this image up here. I actually made it specifically for tonight's show and was going to use it at some point. Well, I was thinking of using it as the thumbnail. But one of the things that happens during Pluto and Aquarius is the first industrial revolution. So I want to put this graphic up here. So the first industrial revolution really takes place right around 1783, roughly. Hold on a second. 1783, and I'll show you. Let's find it here. Man, there's so much happening during this period of time. You have the 3/5 compromise, which we'll get into. Let me just go backwards here. Give me 1 second. I'm going to go back to this. Get back to this image, so you guys can see this image. Let's do this. So the the Revolutionary War starts in 1776 and it ends in 1783. So that's a Saturn cycle. It's not an entire Saturn cycle, but it's 1/4 of a Saturn cycle. All right, so I'm going to show you this. I don't know how they figured this out, but January 1st, the Industrial Revolution, the Iron Bridge opens across the River Severn. So if you look at the Industrial Revolution, this is the first Industrial Revolution. And it's the Roberts Loom 1835, which is like that's a working version of it. But a lot of these things were taking place so the earliest term Industrial Revolution was in July 1799. So by this time, right, like Pluto is deeply in Aquarius. 1781, right there, right? This whole thing starts in 1776. Let's go back another year. 1780. Come on. Now I'm on the hotspot. It's just going a bit slow. Fuck. And as soon as I leave the room, the lights come back on. This is fucking crazy. Let me do this. I'm going to try. I was going to get off the hotspot. This is totally fucking crazy. All right, let me get back to the struct share. Yes. All right. This is going to be a nightmare. I got kicked out of StreamYard again. Okay, this is getting real fun. Getting real fun. Now says the stream has ended. I'm done. I'm done. I'm done. Now it says, hold on. This is really weird. It told me the stream has ended. Okay, 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 okay. This is getting really long. I need to get rid of you. Okay, there are two of them. So look at that. It's just I'll be turning this off. Okay. Holy shit. Do we have to sacrifice the virgin or something? All right, let's try and get back into it. If there is another issue here, let's pitch that. There we go. If there's 272 of you are still here, God bless you. If there's another issue, then I'm going to call it a night. If there's another issue. So let's just hold some space for the spirits. Okay, started off with this image, right? We are here, the same place where Pluto was in Aquarius was during the first build out of the Industrial Revolution, which happens in England. That's the first Industrial Revolution, right? And in the United States, it happens later. It's the second Industrial Revolution. By the way, I believe that a lot of these technologies were already there, but that's part of a different show. And then what we have over here, Pluto in Aquarius, part 2, we're way beyond the second Industrial Revolution. We're probably like the 4th or 5th Industrial Revolution. So the second Industrial Revolution is what takes place here in the United States after what takes place in England. And that goes on for a while, right? And we get to the age of transistors, and transistors change everything, right? We go from tubes and gears and all the things that were related to this part of our technological development, and everything gets miniaturized. Right? These giant TVs that used to put these tubes in, right? They get smaller. Everything gets smaller. Miniaturization happens with the advent of the transistor. That's the third industrial revolution, is the advent of the transistor. The fourth industrial revolution is the beginning of the computer age, which we can specifically trace to Uranus and Scorpio in the late 70s and early 80s, where all of the computer shit happens simultaneously. Bill Gates, Apple, Steve Jobs, Tandy Systems, the first nodes of ARPANET are turned on, right? That's the beginning of the fourth industrial revolution. It's computers, and computers for the home and computers for the workplace. We're in the midst of the fifth industrial revolution, which would be a combination of computer tech and biotech and all the things that would go along with it, right? So on the right-hand side, we have flying drone pizzas and flying drones. And over here, we have the beginnings of it all. So this is the long tail of Pluto and Aquarius that started in the early 1780s, which I think is really worth talking about. Because if this is what we went through then, which in a lot of ways, and again, we're gonna take it and place it in like a historical context, a textbook historical context. We won't talk about sort of the leave behind technology, which I do think played a role, right? So we have this historical context, and the difference between this and working on a farm and smithing something is something just light years. Like the things that they do in order to make the products may have some similarity, like a loom, but it's called the Morris loom. It's industrial, and it's used by a lot of people, right? It's not just a one-person loom. So they could recognize the loom, but they would not necessarily, the ability of many people to work on the loom simultaneously would blow their minds, right? If you just took somebody from, let's say, the countryside in Scotland, northern Scotland, they're in the countryside, right? Like they're, fairly agrarian still, raising sheep, doing all that shit. And then you take them to London, you drop them in this world automatically, right? It would kind of blow their minds because it would be a major paradigm shift from what they had been experiencing. Just like how this would be a major paradigm shift for most people who have some degree of understanding of the mechanical world, right? So Pluto in Aquarius would represent the next, because this was number one, right? They say this was the first one. And it happens in Pluto and Aquarius, the Great Iron Bridge. This would be the next version of the first one, right? So everything after whatever unfolds during Pluto and Aquarius during this time will set the tail for everything that comes after it. Just like when this happened with Pluto and Aquarius, sets the tail. Like everything starts here, and eventually this is way downstream. But what this becomes and what happens way downstream from this will be, it's either going to go two ways. It's either going to throw us back into fighting each other with sticks, or technology will become so weird and not understandable from where, like, how do you incorporate like these ideas into this world? I'm not saying these people were dumb, by the way, but this is just light in some ways. This is light years away from that, right? So what happens if, say, 50 years from now, like technology as we know it has just so radically different? Like it doesn't even look like technology. It might look like some kind of plant form or some kind of chlorophylactic sort of transmitter, right? Like it may look completely different than anything we can wrap our heads around. And I guarantee you, if you would take one of these people from this time and drop them into whatever our time is now, in a very highly like distilled, like take them to, what is it, the Sphere in Las Vegas. Take somebody from here and drop them in the Sphere and see what happens. Like hell, you could probably take some people from, like take somebody from Mindanao and drop them in the Sphere. Fucking blow their minds, right? Might even blow your mind if you haven't been to the Sphere. This is what I'm talking about. So we're at this nexus point with Pluto and Aquarius and technology, in as much as it was happening back then. Because this is what was happening back then. Everything was getting ramped up and it was all new. And it was all about automation. It was the earliest rendition of automation. This will be the latest rendition of automation. So it's really important to understand, right? It's a very, very important aspect of Pluto and Aquarius to understand. It's the technological aspect. Now, will it be benign? Will it be malevolent? Probably be a little bit of both. You know, I think it has the potential to completely incarcerate us, but it also has the potential to, because Aquarius is like, you know, Mercury is exalted in Aquarius, and we know that Mercury is the trickster, and with Aquarius, Uranus is the determining factor. Now, speaking of Uranus, guess what else happened with when Pluto was in Aquarius? I'm going to show you. Uranus was discovered. How about that? So Uranus, the ruling planet of Aquarius, is discovered when Pluto is in Aquarius. Right there. March 13th, 1781, just before midnight. Looked it up. Somerset, England. So this is the template. In many ways, this is the template for Uranus, right? It becomes, you know, we become aware of its more than just mythological status in the night sky, right? And so there's Uranus at 2427 Gemini. So think about that for a minute, just for a second. Like, even though Uranus rules Aquarius, the first time it becomes stamped and has a position in the sky that has been recognized and eventually enumerated, it's right here. So your Uranus has a bit of the quality of Gemini. And you'll say, well, Uranus rules. No, this is the chart. This is the chart for Uranus. So we have Uranus in Gemini at 24 degrees. And what did I say about this energy? It is very trickster-like. Not only that, but Uranus is coming back into Gemini and will be a dance partner with Pluto early on, right? And things are going to speed up tremendously. And I'm actually looking forward to Uranus going into Gemini. Uranus and Taurus has been rough. It's just been rough, man. Like, you know, it's had some nice stops along the way. Trining my Sun, trining my Saturn, but it has been hell in my fucking sixth house. I had a hard time just getting shit done every time. Just like right there, right? To me, that was a Uranus sixth house moment. which is where it's been. It's like disruptive. It's been disruptive with my work. I've been trying to figure out, well, what do I need to do? How do I tame this thing? So I'm just going to deal with it. So, yeah, we're going back into Uranus and Gemini, but this is the template, right? In some ways, this is the Uranian template. There's Pluto right there, 6 degrees in Aquarius, right? So when Pluto hits 6 degrees of Aquarius, it is Uranus's birthday. Right? It is Uranus's birthday. Every March 13th, by the way, we should light a candle for Uranus. So that brings us into the realm of Pisces. But it's right there, right? We can see it. Bada boom. And what's it doing? Pluto is sextiling Mercury. Oh, look at that. Mercury in Aries. It's fast. It's fast, isn't it? This in some ways is also determining the nature of Uranus. Right? We also have Venus here. Venus is in Pisces, but again, by degree, it's trining Uranus as well. So it has to do with the disruption or the interruption of either being a single entity or a non-single entity. And over here, we've got Saturn, Mars conjunction right there in Sagittarius. So what do we want here? Order. We want some degree of order when it comes to Uranus and this Aquarian kind of disruption. And Mars Saturn in Sagittarius says, hey, bring the gavel. We want some order. There's order in the court. Order in the court. Jupiter, Scorpio, retrograde, and it is in a kind of a wide trine with the sun. And we have the moon in Scorpio also here. Now we're in a tight trine with the sun. And the true node is also in Taurus, and it's conjunct Chiron, which is also quite interesting, given that Chiron and Taurus doesn't do real well with Earth-related issues, right? And what's the sign that Chiron will be discovered in 1977? It's going to be Taurus. So we have two planets, like Uranus, discovered in 13th of March, 1781, Pluto in Aquarius. And then here's Chiron, which will be discovered. Chiron is connected to Uranus, right? Chiron is the arbiter between Uranus and Saturn. And so here's the true node here, conjunct Chiron. And good luck. Good luck dealing with Uranus on Earth. Good luck. And guess what? It's the wound, right? It's the wound of feeling like we're not from here. We're not in this place. We also have a yod going on with what? Venus, Chiron, and then Neptune. Right there. And Neptune's up there in Libra, and it's retrograde, and it's trying to find some balance with things. But it's moving backwards, which means that there's not a lot of footing. And then with Virgo in the midheaven, we're trying to find meaning from all of this. Like that's what Virgo is trying to do. It's trying to find meaning and context, and to reason these things out, and to make them rational. And then we have Jupiter here, and this is interesting. Let's just talk about this for a second. This to me, this would be like the ingredients list right here for the planet Uranus. 1 part Jupiter, retrograde, Scorpio, first house, in conjunct Uranus. Like this is the best laid plans that don't get fulfilled, right? But don't sweat it, because Jupiter in Scorpio retrograde is like, whoa, didn't work out. Wait a minute. Wait a second. Like there may be more of this than meets the eye. So the thing with Aquarius, the thing with Uranus, what does it cultivate in us? A lack of judgment. And when I say judgment, I'm not talking about judgment as in like, oh, I'm going to put my hand on this burner over here, or I'm going to get 3 sheets to the wind, and I'm going to go drive through this town where most of the police officers in the county live. Like that's poor judgment. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about judgment as it relates to judging a situation or judging something that happens. Because that's what Uranus and that's what Aquarius brings to the table. It's like, okay, that happened. Should we jump to conclusions? Probably not. Let me give you a story about this. I'll share a story with you. Some of you may know the story. Some of you may not. Some of you are new to the channel. I brought up David Bowie. David Bowie is an Aquarius rising. Okay? Sun in the 12th house in Capricorn, Aquarius rising. I went to Virgin Records one day in New York, 1999, to interview David Bowie. Right? So I go there to interview David Bowie. And I'm there in the the offices of Virgin Records. It's where Richard Branson hangs out. He wasn't there that day. Very nice place. I'm watching this video, David Bowie's video, and it was for the Hours record. It's not a very good record, midlife crisis record. So I go in there to the boardroom, which is where I'm going to meet David Bowie. This is a big deal for me. My hands are sweating, right? I got a tape recorder. That's how, this is where we were, at a tape recorder. So the publicist comes in. By the way, long table, bowls of flowers, candles, a ashtray, pack of Marlboro lights, and a small Bic lighter. And the publicist comes in, and he says, Robert, David, Robert. I get up, and I look at David Bowie, and he's got this kind of glazed look on his face. And he's got these teeth, and they're kind of fucked up, right? And I'm looking at him, and he walks over to me, kind of like a zombie, and he sticks out his hand, and I shake his hand, and I sit down. I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna kind of go with this. I don't know what's happening here, but I'm just gonna reserve some judgment here. And he reaches his hand to his mouth, and he pulls out these fake plastic teeth, and he slams his hand on the table. And he says, unflappable. I like that. And I'm like, oh, you fucker. You were pranking. This is Aquarius rising. This is Aquarius rising. So what did I do? Like, I'm just going to be cool. I'm just going to see where this thing goes. Right. So in that moment, I wasn't like, are you okay? Are you all right? Is he okay? Like, I didn't go there. It's like, I'm just going to see what happens. And that's what Aquarius and Uranus will do, because you're going to see shit that it'll cause you to do a double take, right? It was like, whoa, what is going on with this dude? Right? It will cause you to do a double take. And if you can just maintain your cool and not judge the situation and wait a little bit, you're going to be able to deal with what happens next better than other people who will jump to conclusions about what is going to happen. This Jupiter in conjunct Uranus. This is the recipe for Uranus. This is the chart. This is what comprises Uranus. The squares, the inconjuncts, right? The lightning speed, Mercury, Mars trine, right? Mercury trine Saturn, Saturn saying goodbye. Look, Uranus is all the way on the other side of Saturn. It's like, goodbye, Aquarius. Saturn used to be the home of Aquarius. Goodbye, Aquarius. It was beautiful having you here and sharing the planet with you. Capricorn's like, it's all fucking mine now. Get the fuck out of here. But really, that's an interesting symbol, right? Uranus is all the way on the other side of Saturn. It's no longer going to be a part of Saturn. Isn't that interesting? And even here, Saturn-Mars conjunction, Mars will go through its own divorce with what? Pluto. Pluto will eventually migrate on, right? So very interesting. Jupiter was sharing the bed with signs with Neptune, right? So these three, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, those three planets were the home for the three other signs, right? The outer signs, Pisces, Scorpio, Pisces, and Aquarius in order. So this is it, right? This is the recipe for Uranus right here. This chart, it happens. So Uranus is discovered during Pluto in Aquarius. And I really feel like when Pluto gets to that 6th degree, things are going to get real turned up. Like the volume is going to get real loud. And we're just a few degrees away from Pluto going into that 2nd decan, which puts it in the Gemini decan. It's not quite there yet, is it, with this chart? But it's fascinating, absolutely fascinating. So we talked about the Industrial Revolution, first Industrial Revolution. That happens during Pluto and Aquarius. We're having another one coming real soon, right, which will be the first of the next wave of industry. Like what comes after this is going to be as shocking and radical as what happened during the first Industrial Revolution to where we are now. Now, we could also, at some point, completely black out like we did in the other room, in which case we'll be forced to kind of, go on to or move on to our inner technologies, which, again, we've been working on. Like the last, I don't know, I don't know about you guys, but the syncs have been just, it's not just syncs. Syncs are one thing, but there's something causal. There's something causal in the air, right? It's almost like we might even get really good at bending reality. It's sort of like these wars in Russia and Ukraine and Israel. Did you ever see you ever read the book The Lathe of Heaven? It's a very interesting book. It was made into a kind of a 3 or 4 part TV series on PBS. And The Lathe of Heaven is the story of a guy. I think is it Doris Lessing? It might be Doris Lessing who wrote that book. Anyway, The Lathe of Heaven is the story of a guy who has these dreams, and his dreams shape reality. And his therapist becomes aware of his ability to shape reality. And so what the therapist does is he wants to hijack his dream life so he can essentially shape reality. It's a very, and this was happening during a time when not a lot of people were kind of thinking about these things. So I'm going to throw this and put this on the table. Is it impossible? Like if we're having phenomena, I just had some phenomena last night, I think it's like causal phenomena. Like what happened at the Frost Bank Center, where it's like, oh, where's the old white guy up there? And then I became the old white guy, right? And looking at the guy with the turban and saying, hey, I think I'll become a Sikh. I'd like to have a turban. And then my son sends me this turban thing. What if we were able to do that with Israel in the Middle East? What if we were able to do something like that? It would not be out of the realm of possibility. We are in Pluto and Aquarius, people. We're moving into this space where this idea of reality is getting real warped, right? Really warped. And it feels very fluid, like the waves of the cistern bearer, right? So what would happen if we had thoughts like the dreamer in The Lathe of Heaven, and the thoughts were mainly positive? You have to go positive. You have to go positive. Because if you get in this realm of projection, which is very real, by the way, and you wish harm on another person, it will come back. It will come back to you. Right. So anything you think needs to have an effect on the situation where nobody gets harmed. That's tricky. That's a very tricky situation. Right. But you can have these thoughts, and your thoughts are very powerful. And our thoughts are very powerful. Pluto and Aquarius, we're going to see it. It's going to happen. So what, if we wanted to, let's say the war in Israel to end, right? It's a big thought. It's a very, very big thought. How would you go about sculpting a thought like that? You say, oh my, you're playing God. You're playing God. Well, yeah, of course. That's who we are, right? We're the agency. We're the cosmic agency. That's what we are. We're the cosmic agency of the divine. And this is our realm. And if other people are not going to listen to us and hear what we have to say or not carry out our will, then it's incumbent upon us to do it ourselves. And this is without firing a shot or loading a weapon or even firing a shot. This is what it's about. So if you could have a thought that would say, that not even say, if you could have a thought that would encapsulate the end of a very bloody and genocidal situation in that part of the world, where it was so evident to everyone what was happening, that there could be no other choice than for the world in unison to hang their heads in shame and say, no more. No more. We cannot do this. Because it would be one thing, we could have something very whimsical, like Benjamin Netanyahu coming out one day, forgetting to get dressed and addressing the nation, right? Or addressing the world in nothing but, his birthday suit. And that would be funny, I think. That'd be very funny. But would it achieve the goal? The goal is for people to understand that what's taking place is an atrocity. And what would that thought look like? And how would it feel? So that everyone, even the cheerleaders of the prophecies, or the cheerleaders that have to live up to their APAC donations, that they would get it, or that they would understand it, and that they would walk away from their shameful behavior, and they would see it in the most humane light possible. What would that look like? First of all, we have to care about those people. Like, that would be first and foremost. We'd have to care about them because they're part of us. This is all Aquarius, right? They are us. There's no distinction in a lot of ways. They are us. And you know what? Not all of them, but even some of these assholes that won't listen or play the game, guess what? They're part of us too. That's a hard pill to swallow. I know. But this is kind of the soup we're in now, right? But we know that these people are having a hellacious time. And there's really nobody there to stand by them and to put their foot down for tyranny or against tyranny. So think of a thought, cultivate a thought. And that thought is that the people who are the sponsors of genocide and the sponsors of war all have the same dream at the same time. And that dream is a dream that wakes them out of their inhumanity. And they realize, oh my God, what have I done? Just like the Talking Head song, letting the days go by. Oh my, and you may ask yourself, oh my God, what have I done? Right? That's the moment that we can hold not just a space for, but a thought for.
And that's how you win a war, right? That's a revolutionary thought. So that they all have the same dream at the same time. And then they speak amongst one another. And I said, you won't believe this, but I had this incredibly lucid dream. And, I'm not sure what to do about it. I felt like I was there watching everything. And then the other person says, I had the same dream. And then they talk amongst each other and they all realize that they had the same dream and that they were all there together. How do you think that would impact them? And you would say, well, some of them are just monsters and reptiles, and that's true, but not all of them are. Some of them are just deeply scarred and manipulated humans. And what happens if those humans are no longer there to do the bidding of the dark overlords? It becomes very interesting then. So this is what I would propose, that they have the same dream at the same time, and that dream helps them awaken from the darkness that they're living in and the darkness that they're trying to spread. I mean, let's be honest. There's a lot of momentum to whip this shit up, right? Whether it's Israel, whether it's Ukraine, or whether it's Europe, or the streets of the US, wherever. That's the recipe, I think. You may have your own version. That'd be mine. All right. Check this out. This is also what happened when Pluto was in Aquarius. Look at this. The Bank of North America was the first chartered bank in the United States and served as the country's first de facto central bank. Happens in Pluto and Aquarius, May 26th, 1781. It was chartered by the Congress of Confederation, and it opened in Philadelphia, January 7th, 1782. That's one day before David Bowie's birthday, but January 8th. The bank's founding was based on a plan presented by the superintendent of finance, one Robert Morris, on May 17, 1781, including recommendations by Revolutionary Era founder, founding father Alexander Hamilton, not a good dude, who was appointed the first U.S. Secretary of Treasury by George Washington, although Hamilton later noted the bank's essential contribution to the American Revolutionary War. The Pennsylvania government objected to its privileges and reincorporated it under state law, making it unsuitable as a national bank under the U.S. Constitution. Congress instead chartered the first bank of the United States, a new bank, in 1791, while Bank of North America continued as a private concern. So this is really interesting, right? It's interesting. Why? Because we're talking about new money. The bank issued its own notes that superseded the troubled continental currency bills. These notes were printed on paper with colored fibers. Ever hear of the rainbow money exchange? Pressed into the reverse side as an anti-counterfeiting measure. Unlike the continental bills, the new notes carried a promise to pay silver on demand. Despite these changes, the bank had difficulty at first persuading people of its good credit. And at one point, it employed repossessors to follow people who redeemed notes and urge them to deposit the money back. To promote the impression that it had a large reserve, the bank made a show of moving cash boxes to and from its cellar. Once the stock was fully subscribed and paid, doubts subsided, and the notes rose to par value. By 1783, several states, including Massachusetts, enacted legislation allowing Americans to pay taxes with Bank of North America notes, giving them a crucial aspect of legal tender. In the economic turmoil that followed the American Revolution, the bank's strictness in collecting debts drew opposition from Pennsylvania residents, who petitioned the Pennsylvania General Assembly to revoke the state charter granted to it in 1782. So eventually they wind up having a different bank, right? But this is the first bank. This is the first central bank. The original charter, as outlined by Hamilton, called for disbursement of 1,000 shares priced at $400 each. Benjamin Franklin purchased a single token share as a sign of good faith to Federalists and their new bank. Hamilton used his pseudonym. Publius, later immortalized in the Federalist Papers, advocating in the late 1780s for the adoption of the United States Constitution to endorse the bank. It was probably pretty good that they put this back into a private state, right? Because it was like, hey, let's get a central bank here, and let's crank it up. But of course, that comes back later in 1913. William Bingham, rumored to be the richest man in America after the Revolutionary War, purchased 9.5% of the available shares. The greatest share, however, 63.3%, was purchased on behalf of the United States government by Robert Morris, using a gift in the form of a loan from France and a loan from the Netherlands. This is really weird. Okay, this is fucking crazy. Like, I was born in France, and my mother's family's from the Netherlands. This had the effect of capitalizing the bank with large deposits of gold and silver, coin, and bills of exchange. He then issued new paper currency backed by this supply. So Robert Morris becomes the financier of the early days of the United States government. So where are we now? We're talking about new currencies, right? We're talking about brand new currencies. We're talking about cryptocurrency. We're talking about, Elon Musk is talking about, using X to have all of your financial transactions, right? It's the same model, but a different time. Now go back and look at what happened. So this is started up, right? And it's going to be the thing. And Alexander Hamilton probably has more nefarious ends than Robert Morris. Robert Morris and George Washington were tight. And Robert Morris helped finance part of the American Revolution because at one time, he was the most landed person in the United States, the burgeoning United States. But this does not go according to plan, right? The state of Pennsylvania revokes the charter. Remember, Pluto's in Aquarius here. So this thing is created, it's up and running, the continental bills are underwater. So it serves a purpose for a period of time, right? Which is really very Aquarian. Aquarian things don't always last long, right? They don't last forever unless it's the Iron Bridge, but they don't last forever. It's sort of like this jolt, and it happens. Like, even go back and look at COVID, right? Saturn was in Aquarius. What did people get? They got, $1,500 or $600, whatever. Right? It was like a jolt. It wasn't meant to last forever, but it was a jolt. So even this, which started off, like, there's the pence note. You see that? 3 pence note. And these fibers were put in there. So even though this started off in this way, and it was going to be institutional, it was not. Right? There was a later iteration of it, but it wasn't tied into the federal government in the same way. So to me, this is an incredible occurrence during Pluto in Aquarius. We see something that works for a period of time. Alexander Hamilton wants to embed it further and deeper into the fabric of the country and the Constitution, and the state of Pennsylvania pulls the plug. Says, no, we're revoking the charter. We're gonna put this back into private hands, and we're gonna make this a state institution, not a federal institution. This is what I'm talking about. This is exactly what I'm talking about when it comes to just waiting. Just waiting. Because Hamilton thinks, well, shit, I got this covered. Like, this is a wrap. And it's not. It only lasts for a period of time, right? It helps the country get off the ground, but it's not meant to be permanent. Now, you could say, well, that's going to be different with cryptocurrency, or it'll be different with the digital. We don't know. We really don't know. It could be an interregnum position, an intermediary position. It doesn't have to be like how we'll exchange money forever. And not every state will agree to it. Remember that. There are states that have already, in their state charters, that have said that they will not honor a CBDC. They're already out there. There will be more to come. Right? So it's not like there's going to be this broad, sweeping new thing for everybody. I would not be surprised if there's competing currencies somewhere along the way. We kind of already are in the crypto world. But I just wanted to bring this up, right? So let's go back and look at what we have. We have first wave industrial revolution, Pluto and Aquarius. And then way downstream, right? We also have the founding of Pluto. We find Pluto. I'm sorry, Uranus, the finding of Uranus and Pluto and Aquarius. And then that's the recipe book for Uranus. If you put all those things together, right? The squares and the inconjuncts are all kind of there. And then we have the founding of the first central bank, which basically creates a universal coin of the realm for the young United States government. Now, of course, under Pluto of Aquarius, the country winds up winning the war. I believe it's February 3rd, 1983, if I'm not mistaken, or 1783 rather. And that in and of itself is incredibly Aquarian. So let me show you this right here. February 3rd, 1783, American Revolutionary War, Great Britain acknowledges the independence of the United States of America. At this time, the Spanish government does not grant diplomatic recognition. They've got a score to settle, obviously. Louisiana Purchase, the South, and all that stuff, right? But that's an important date. February 4th, Great Britain firmly declares that it will cease hostilities. In hell, there's even some earthquakes that celebrate it, right? The last celebration of Massacre Day. We're into Pisces here. But this is important, right? February 3rd, February 4th, those are Aquarian days. The country, 7 years later, right, wins its independence on Aquarian days. So if we're looking right now, Pluto and Aquarius, and there's something cooking, right? There's something cooking. And here, now, there is something happening. Like there was a revolution, like we've seen the color revolution, the purple revolution, we've seen the MAGA revolution. So we're in these revolutionary cycles. So theoretically, 7 years from now, this will be resolved. So we're talking, 2031. On the other side of 2030, on the other side of Agenda 2030, on the other side of Saturn and Taurus, well, it'll be there. But this is when this period of time comes to a conclusion, right? If we can learn from the past, which we're clearly doing, I've shown you, right? I've shown you that we're in a new wave of technological innovation and industry. It's coming. We are in the midst of re-engineering whatever the coin of the realm is, the value, and who is going to be in charge of establishing that value, right? We're in that place, both places, and that's already happened during this other cycle. Well, this happens during this cycle as well, which is the resolution of all of it. So I just figured something out. This is the epiphany I had. Do you know why they want to go with carbon credits and this Green New Deal technology? Do you know why? I figured it out. Some of you probably already figured it out. Because what they want to do in order to run these digital money systems, you have to have immense power. And I know they're talking about building these small nuclear plants, right? Just to power. Didn't somebody like talk about how they're going to hook 3 Mile Island up to some kind of like crypto mining thing, right? So what they're doing is they want to get people off of the traditional grid, and they just want to use whatever that grid is, what it's attached to power the digital money exchange. That's what this whole carbon credit thing is about. I mean, I think there's more to it than that, but I think it's a big part of it. It's like we'll get people over here, we'll put them on a different energy grid, and then the other energy grid will power the new electronic digital currency. I feel like this is one of the, so they're just segmenting the grid, but by doing that, it's also limiting what people can do, because the way that they built out like the solar grid or the wind grid is not that powerful. Like that shit can't power any kind of real digital currency. And right now, all the things that we use, whether it's coal or gas or whatever, to generate power, they're gonna need that. Plus, in order to fuel their digital money systems. That's a large part why they're doing this carbon credit thing. That plus it's connected to a bizarre version of it. All right, let's do this. Let's take a quick look at England's chart because somebody had requested it. And wanted to see if I had anything. Yeah, so this is here. Let me throw this up here. This is what the chart looked like on February 3rd in 1783. We did a chart for that. So let me show you the chart. It's like 12 noon. Okay, we'll put the sun at the top. Look at that. Sun conjunct Pluto, conjunct Venus. War's end. This country's Aquarian, right? Like it's Cancer at the inception and the signing, but the culmination and the victory of the country is Aquarian. And if we looked at that chart, America's chart, that Mars would be bang on the Sibley Sagittarius ascendant. Right now, I can see where some people would use Gemini rising for the chart because, hey, if you're going to use this day in 12 noon as the time, I guess you could do that. New moon in pretty much new moon in Pisces, Mercury. This is a very interesting chart. Uranus has moved on. It's in Cancer here at 3 degrees. Neptune is in Libra direct. And then you have this Jupiter-Saturn conjunction in Capricorn, which again is very American, right? This is the oligarchs, the ruling class, the rise of capital or the raising of capital with Jupiter. It's funny how capital and Capricorn are kind of like two. You know, there's that Chiron and Taurus, you know, mapping out the new world, the new land. It's a very unusual, in some ways, alien landscape, right? So there you go. That's the victorious moment right there. All right. Let's see. This is the UK. I think I got another one for this. Hold on. I've got a couple of charts for this. And this is for the United Kingdom, not the progressive rock band. I thought I had some transits in here. I guess I include the transits. Okay, so this is technically considered January 1st, 1801, 12:01 a.m. This is generally considered the chart for modern day England, which makes it a Capricornian country, which makes sense, right? because you deal with hierarchies in England. You know, the United States is a Cancer country, right? There's the Cancer moon on the other side, right there. Pretty close, right? Here's Sirius, and this is right where the United States sun would be, all the way on the other side of the chart. So these countries are linked, and they're opposing. And Cancer is very different than Capricorn. Capricorn's all about hierarchies, and Cancer is more, again, more about the folk, more about the people, more about the establishment, the tradition. So that's also very big in England. And here we have the moon in Cancer. What's fascinating is that the moon in Cancer is like it's like the Queen Mother, right? Even though the Queen, the last Queen we dealt with was a Taurus, this is very Queen Motherly in the sign of Cancer, right? So this would be like Parliament or the people, or not Parliament, not people. And this would be like the Queen Mother, right? So this is very much Jupiter and Leo. In England, again, is even Saturn. Now, both of these are retrograde. So eventually, this whole idea of monarchies and the royals, it's going to fall. And what's interesting is if we put Pluto right over here, it would be opposing England's Jupiter retrograde in Aquarius. England, this is a huge moment for you in terms of like your hierarchies, your order, your structure, which has all been based on nobility. Leo. Wow. It's powerful, really powerful. Also, Uranus in Libra. So we'll put Pluto right there, zero Aquarius, right? Coming in and trining. Libra rising, which is, you know, I think of the English people as being very refined. Like when I was back in the music business, if I had to hire a publicist, it would always be an English woman. Are you fucking kidding me? I'm hiring an English woman every day, 24/7 as my publicist. Why? Because they're fucking charming. That's why. They're educated. They're charming. You know, I'll be a little sexist here. They probably look good in a miniskirt. But besides that, I would hire them every single. And I dealt with a lot of English publicists. I loved them. They were great. It was like just really pleasant and listening to them, and they were good at their job, right? And to me, that's the refinement in a lot of ways. And I know that England has like a working class, just like America does. But this is England's had a lot of time to refine itself, right? And on the other side over here in the seventh house, there's also been a little passive aggressive kind of vibe as well, right? Like, but the other thing too is I think once you like, I wouldn't take English people for granted. Let me just say that I would not take them for granted, and especially with Aries on the other side. You know, don't count the English people out, right? Tough. They're tough people. Really tough people. And the true note in Aries, overcoming adversity, et cetera, et cetera. The other thing that's interesting, this is all, you know, pre-1801, but Britannia, you know, ruled the seas. And this is a bit of a snapshot here. Neptune in Scorpio, second house. Neptune rules the ocean. Trining the moon, new lands, right? And this is all happening pre-1801. But they're still pretty engaged, right, in this whole idea of colonization in the 1800s. I would think that Saturn here is very strict in terms of like social codes. You know, the 11th house, it's like kind of strict. And definitely kind of a class system. But look, Pluto's coming in and it's going to take a wrecking ball to a lot of it, right? So everything that's been kind of built up with this idea of the monarchy, the royalty, that's going away. Like that is going away. Now, how that bodes for the rest of England, TBD, to be determined. Right? I think Uranus is going to be interesting because Uranus has been in England's 8th house for almost the last 7 years. When it clears the 8th house and Uranus comes into England's 9th house, it feels very revolutionary to me, especially in the early degrees, trying in the ascendant. And I think that the people will have had kind of enough, right? And I could see a new version of England coming when Uranus goes into Cancer and it conjuncts that Cancer moon halfway through that transit. Who knows? Maybe England and the United States will become closer again as a result of that. That might be a very interesting development. I mean, we can't become geographically closer, but we might become closer again. So, yeah, I mean, I think this is the biggest development, that Pluto-Jupiter opposition. It just feels, and even if it's not the royal family, it's kind of like the henchman of the royal family, Parliament, kind of an extension in some ways of the royal family. It's going to get interesting over there. I did a chart with when the Queen died. Again, this is for all you folks over in England. So what was interesting about this chart is we're still working with England, right? UK. So UK, London's on the inside, right there. We can see everything. There's Uranus, that slightly rebellious aspect, hidden, right? You don't really see it, but it's there. What I found interesting was Saturn moon was conjunct that day, right? Which is the 8th of September, 2022. Saturn moon was conjunct. The moon, of course, is what? The mother. It's maternal. And what is going on here? There's a Saturn-Saturn opposition. This is the beginning of the end of the royal dynasty in England. It's the Saturn-Saturn opposition. And when you get into the Saturn-Saturn opposition, something has to change. Something different has to occur. You can't, it's just not business as usual. And I found this to be really fascinating. And you can see, right, there's Uranus transiting through the 8th house. And eventually it's going to come up here, it's going to break on through to the other side, and it's going to be revolutionary. How it looks, TBD. Very much TBD, right? Jupiter's up here as well, retrograding, but it will come back. Okay, so that's it. We have reached a hard stop with the show. And so I hope that you got a lot out of it tonight. Thank you for being here and being able to sit through everything. I appreciate your patience. And don't forget, hit the like, subscribe. We'll be back on Tuesday with the Astro Weather. God bless you all. Treat each other well. Bye for now.